Welcome, everybody, back to another bonus clip of the Play by Play podcast. Where in today's clip, we will be discussing the recent news and very rare NFL interdivisional trade between the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles, where Jahan Dotson was traded from the Commanders to Philadelphia for a conventional third round and seventh round pick. We will be looking at both sides, how this affects them, and more importantly, deep diving into the Commanders, their recent moves, and their recent season records as of late, and what could pin them as one of, if not the worst ran recent franchises in NFL history. I want to thank you guys so much for your support on this episode's, future episodes, and past episodes. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, like the video, comment down below, and share with your friends. And if you haven't already, please feel free to follow us on all social medias, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. All of the ads will be down below in the description, and there will be a bar popping up momentarily right here. Go ahead and do that so that you can see my instant reactions to all recent breaking news in the sports world, as well as never being able to miss a notification for when the podcast recently posts. Without further ado, the commentary on Terry McLaurin and the trade to the Philadelphia Eagles starts right now. Now, this was an interesting trade for a bunch of different reasons. First of all, an interdivisional trade, that does not happen very often. And it's a pretty consequential one as well. One that I think really bolsters one side of the coin and one that I think really deteriorates the other side of it. The last one that we've seen of this, where that was the case, was really the TJ Hawkinson trade back in 2022 with the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. And in the beginning, you look at that trade and you may think, what were the Lions doing? Hawkinson has established himself likely as a top 5 tight end in the league. His athleticism is unmatched, but the Lions were able to get a little bit out of that, and they were able to draft Sam Laporta to fill in that hole. So it kind of worked out for both sides. No side really lost when it comes to that deal in the end because both teams got a piece of this. But in the case of the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles, starting off just with Philly, this was a really great move for them. You know, Jahan Dotson isn't the biggest of names, but in my opinion, I think he established himself as a solid number 2 option on any team. He has really high touchdown upside. He had 7 touchdowns in his rookie year, followed that off with a little bit of a dip with 4 touchdowns in his second year. He's averaged around 500 to 600 yards throughout his career in each season that he's played. Now, those aren't insane numbers. Those are likely not even what you want from your number 2 receiver. If you look at some of the top number 2 receivers, you look at Devontae Smith, Brandon Ayuk. Those guys are pretty easily getting over 1,000 yards each season. But for the condition that the Commanders have been with their quarterback situation that they have had, which we're going to get to in a little bit, it is a really solid season for somebody who did not see the field very much. And it's a really good position for somebody to be a number 3 option on a team that includes A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Philadelphia Eagles have really built a really solid core around Jalen Hurts, who we're really going to have to focus on this next season and seeing if he can capitalize on it. Now, of course, my biggest concern with Jalen Hurts, if you heard it in my fantasy football episode, was obviously the chemistry and the rift of a relationship between him and head coach Nick Sirianni. So we're going to have to see there how that heals up. If they can make amends, if they can come together and Sirianni can start putting Hurts in better situations, I think this team has a lot of potential to be one of the biggest offenses with the greatest firepower in the NFL, going up against teams such as the San Francisco 49ers. And speaking of the 49ers, I really think that was the play here. You know, you get Saquon Barkley away from the New York Giants. You now take Jahan Dotson away from the Commanders. I think that they're looking to go offense for offense with the 49ers. I think they find it way too hard to stop that offense. So I think the position that they're going to, especially with their defense aging a lot and them bringing in some rookies that are going to need time to develop, I think they're looking at this and they're going, hey, this year we're going to look to outscore those guys. We're going to look to put offense up against offense. And if we have to score 35, 42, 49 points and win in a shootout, we'll take that because we believe we have enough firepower with Saquon Barkley in the backfield. Very solid offensive line across the board. You have Dallas Goedert at tight end. You now have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and you now have Jahan Dotson. Jalen Hurts is in a really exceptional position. And to me, a couple of weeks ago when the Atlanta Falcons were making all these moves, signing Justin Simmons, trading for Matthew Judon, I said that they likely cracked the top 3, potentially top 2 of this NFC conference. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles have taken that spot back and pretty handily. Still put them slightly behind the Niners, just seeing as I believe that the Niners have a better defensive front. But Philadelphia Eagles are here to stay. They're going to absolutely dominate this division. And if they can dominate the Cowboys as they have in years past, they can sweep the Cowboys. They're going to be in a really good spot to look to get 12, 13, 14, potentially even 15 wins and go head to head against the Niners in that NFC Championship game for a spot against potentially the Chiefs in this year's Super Bowl. Now flipping the coin to the Washington Commanders, because I'm not really sure who approved of this move. I'm not really sure who made this plan. I'm not sure who really approved of this plan, because this move, more and more that I think about it, just does not make a lot of sense. Now, just on the outside looking in, a third-round pick for somebody who has averaged 600 yards in his career, that is not too bad of a haul. That is not too bad of value to get for somebody like Jahan Dotson. But we do have to put in the fact that they had the number 2 overall quarterback in the draft. They got their choice of guy. They wanted Jaden Daniels. They had the option for Jaden Daniels or Drake May. They decided to go in and choose Jaden Daniels. And when you look at it at a surface level for a rookie quarterback, the most important thing when it comes to rookie quarterbacks is confidence. It's about building confidence. It's about building chemistry with your guys. And Jaden Daniels is somebody that with his athleticism, with his mobility, he can be kind of streaky. And if he gets into a cold spell, it's going to be very, very difficult to get him out of that. And now looking across the board at their team, there's just not a lot of things to work with here. Let me show you their depth chart real quick right here. I'm going to share my screen for all of you guys so that we can take a look at this. All right, so let's take a look at the Washington Commanders depth chart. If we look here at this, there's not a lot to work with. You have Brian Robinson Jr. in the backfield. Now, of course, they did get Austin Eckler, who surprisingly right now is listed as their backup running back. And Eckler is going to help a lot in that pass game. So maybe they look at him as a secondary option now that they've traded away Jahan Dotson. But behind Terry McLaurin, you have De'Ami Brown, somebody who hasn't produced that much. Luke McCaffrey, who is a rookie, who is now in line to be their third wide receiver. You have veterans such as potentially Jamison Crowder. But there's nobody here that is really going to produce a lot. You have Zach Ertz here, who is 34 years old. I believe he's going into the double-digit seasons now. Is not somebody that you're going to look to produce high-level numbers anymore, and actually dealt with injury the previous year. And the reason why I bring this up is because the Washington Commanders have been going through a lot recently. They have been one of the worst performing franchises, in my opinion, in the NFL. Now, of course, you have guys such as the New York Jets, New York Giants, that are going to give these guys a run for their money. I'm not denying that. But if you look at these numbers, I mean, they've only been to the playoffs twice in the last 10 years. And one of them was them being first in the NFC East in a COVID year that saw them win the NFC East with a losing record at 7-9 and compete solidly in a wild card playoff spot, but still fall short. Before that, you got to go all the way back to 2015 for them to have a winning record, where once again they lost in the wildcard playoffs. 2012 with RG3, once again lost in the wildcard playoffs. But if you look across the board at this record, anytime that they're not getting to that top spot in their division, you have 500 season, under 500, 3-13, absolutely abysmal. Just under 500 2 years in a row. You go over 500 with the tie right here. 2 abysmal seasons in 2014 and 2013, 2011, 2010, and 09. Were a bad stretch of seasons for them. It's been a team that just has been able to produce very much offensively. We come here to these numbers right here, looking at the Washington football team. Let's take a look at this. Let's go from 2023 on. Let's take a look at last year's team and their statistics. Let's look at this offense. They were 25th ranked in points overall, 24th ranked in yards, 27th in rushing yards. They were, and this is a team that was first in passing attempts, by the way, and yet only scored about average when it came to passing yards. And that really was because Sam Howell was willing to stretch the length of the field consistently, even if it ended up in interceptions. Look at 2022, not much improvement. 22nd in passing yards, 24th most points, 20th in yards. You go to 2021. 22nd in passing yards, You look at 23rd in points, 21st in yards. They have continued to just stay in this complete cycle of mediocrity. Here's the Super Bowl, not the Super Bowl, I apologize. This is the wild card year, going in 7-9 and win the division. Again, top 10 in passing attempts, but still 24th in passing yards, 25th in points, 30th, almost last in yards. Let's go back to 2019. I won't go too much longer on this. You look at 32nd, last in passing yards, last in points, second to last in yards, last in plays that they got off, 22nd in rushing yards. It is mediocrity after mediocrity for this Washington Commanders team. And when you look at their lineup, they have not been able to get, honestly, some pretty solid quarterbacks, some good help. You look at last year, I mean, this is probably likely the best lineup that they have seen receiving-wise in a while for them, and they just didn't have the quarterback at the helm to help them. I mean, you have Jahan Dotson, you had Terry McLaurin, you had Curtis Samuel. Logan Thomas posted probably the best season of his career the previous year. The previous year before that, they pretty much ran the same lineup, but with Taylor Heineke at the helm. But before that, there's just not much to work with here. You look in 2021, you have De'Ami Brown, you have Adam Humphries, you have Terry McLaurin again, who has been absolutely carrying this team for his tenure in Washington. You look at 2020, the wild card year, pretty much the same. Terry McLaurin, they have Cam Sims, somebody who I don't even believe has a roster spot as of right now. 2019, I believe it was 35-year-old Adrian Peterson at the time. Kelvin Harmon, who still do not understand why they decided to let him go. Terry McLaurin, Paul Richardson. And you see kind of a trend with these receivers that they're taking, the speedy down the field receivers. But they haven't really been able to get that number one, that big physical receiver that is able to jump up and grab the ball. 2018, still running with Adrian Peterson. You had a veteran in Jamison Crowder who has returned to the team. Jordan Reed, who has completely fell off from being one of the top tight ends in the league. Josh Doxson. You can see where I'm getting at. There's just not a lot here when it comes to the Washington Commanders and what they've been able to commit. And this is important just seemingly because they're in that position again. They're in the same position again where you do not have solid receiving options for your number 2 overall quarterback. Now, were they meant to go out and compete for the first place in the NFC East here? No. They're way below the Cowboys. They're way below the Philadelphia Eagles, especially now with Jahan Dotson in place. But I do believe that they were supposed to be more talented than somebody like the New York Giants, who, again, outside of Malik Neighbors, don't have a lot going for them in the passing game. They're in the same spot as the Giants. They're not in any different of a place as the New York Giants were. The only bright spot that they possibly have over New York is that they have Jaden Daniels. New York still struggling to figure out something with the Danny Dimes situation. Brought in Drew Lock to potentially put in a spark for down the play fields. That's really the only edge that Washington sees over New York right now. And the question that I have is, when will it stop? When will they finally decide to turn this ship around? Because they've had promising seasons, but they just seem to go through these terrible dry spells following making the playoffs. They have not seem to be able to capitalize off of winning the division, topping the division, and making the playoffs and continuing to grow their team. It has seemed like they have made the playoffs almost by accident a lot of the times, and then have kind of looked at and seen, okay, we kind of outmatched against some of these top playoff teams, so we're going to take a reset, we're going to rebuild, we're going to try to rebuild this up, but they have not been able to really rebuild some talented offenses. A lot of the defensive guys that they've gotten, Chase Young, number 2 overall, he's not with the team anymore. He's with the New Orleans Saints right now on his 3rd team. They were able to trade him away. Just have not been able to capitalize and develop young, great talent. In the case of Chase Young, I understand that there's injury concern there. It didn't pan out that way because of injury. But at some point, you have to start banking these picks. When you're getting the number 2 overall, when you're getting top 5 almost every single year, you have to start banking these picks, and you have to start building a foundation. And you finally have the guy at the helm who is, like I've mentioned so many times before, is going to be able to maximize out of every single play. But he's going to need something to work with. You have to understand that he had Malik Neighbors in college going for him. He had a really solid head coach. And we'll see what he can do with Cliff Kingsbury as his offensive coordinator. We'll see if they will be able to form relationships there and be solid offensively. But you have to have weapons. Every great quarterback needs weapons. In the case of Washington, not only with Jaden Daniels, but with Sam Howell, with Taylor Heineke, with Alex Smith, going all the way back with RG3. They have consistently not be able to put their quarterback in solid spots to be successful, and they've consistently not been able to consistently build a team around solid quarterbacks and continue a playoff streak. They consistently continue to go through these bad rebuilding dry spells, and it has put them in a position where they are along the lines of teams such as the New York Giants, the New York Jets, those type of teams who go through long dry spell, long losing playoff streak spots where they just can't seem to develop and build players despite being in the top 3, top 5, and top 10 of every single year's draft. So let me know what you guys think about this move. Who did you think won it? Who did you think lost it? I think it's pretty clear and obvious. If I had to give grades for it, obviously we're gonna have to see who this third round pick ends up being for Washington. But just right now, seeing at the surface level, it's pretty low for Washington. I would look at it as around a D, D minus, potentially even an F for the Washington Commanders. I'll rate it a D minus right now just because there's not a lot to go off of with this third round pick. For the Philadelphia Eagles, having Jahan Dotson as your third spot, with you giving your team basically no excuses except to heal up your coach quarterback relationship, I'm going to be giving this about an A minus A. Did not have to give up too much for a guy who's going to be absolutely explosive, getting between the defense, making downfield plays with his great speed in that slot position. I love this for Philly. Do not understand this for Washington. Let me know what you guys think about the trade. Let me know, are the Washington Commanders potentially one of the worst franchises in the history of the NFL with their losing streaks and the dry spells that they have? Gonna have to see how this season turns out for Jane Daniels. I wish him the best of luck. Thank you guys for tuning into this bonus clip. Look out for an episode coming potentially this Sunday where I'm going to be doing Western Conference standing predictions for the 2024-2025 NBA seasons. Again, if you're watched on YouTube, please feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, share with your friends. There will be a bar popping up right here for all the ads of all our social medias, and always down below. Thank you guys for supporting. I hope that you guys have a great day. I'll see you guys on the next one.